So I want you to consider this deeply frustrating and honestly just utterly human experience. You are staring at a slice of cake and you're like totally committed to a strict diet.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
Right. I mean, you know the long-term goal, you understand the nutritional science.
You know exactly what it's going to do to you.
Exactly. But in that specific moment, the machinery in your brain just overwhelmingly compels you to grab a fork.
It's like you can't even stop yourself.
Yeah. But then, and here's where it gets crazy, you take that exact same brain, put it in a totally different context, and that very same person might risk their own life to pull a complete stranger from a burning building.
Which is, sacrificing absolutely everything for someone they don't even know.
It's wild. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring this profound paradox that you navigate every single day, which is the hidden architecture of human impulses.
It really is arguably like the most complex behavioral puzzle we have.
It totally is.
Because we possess this intense vulnerability to immediate temptation, right? But we also harbor this capacity for profound, selfless sacrifice.
And historically, hasn't science treated those as two completely separate things?
Oh, absolutely. For the longest time, they were just seen as completely separate domains of psychology.
Which is exactly why our source material today is so compelling. We are stacking up a fascinating 2026 meta-analysis by Chung, Timula, and Wang.
And that one synthesized, 86 different studies?
Yeah, 86 studies all on the mathematics of self-control. And they focus on this concept called quasi-hyperbolic discounting.
Which sounds incredibly dense, but it's fascinating once you break it down.
Right. And we are pairing that hard data with a highly controversial behavioral science paper by Howard Rachlin. It's called Altruism and Selfishness.
That paper caused such a stir.
Oh, massive. We've got a flurry of fierce rebuttals from evolutionary biologists, economists, neuroscientists. Everyone had an opinion.
They really did.
So our mission today is to explore this kind of radical hypothesis, the idea that refusing a second glass of wine and saving a stranger's life might actually be powered by the exact same psychological machinery.
Well, to even approach that hypothesis, we really first have to understand the mechanics of temptation.
Right. Start with the cake.
Exactly. We need to look at why we fail at simple self-control before we can even begin to understand heroic altruism.
Makes sense.
So that 2026 meta-analysis provides a remarkably precise mathematical model for this. It focuses on that term you mentioned earlier, quasi-hyperbolic discounting.
Okay, yeah. I want to make sure we don't gloss over that frame.
Sorry, let's break it down.
Because hyperbolic discounting is just the standard economic idea that, the further away a reward is, the less we value it.
Right, standard economics.
But the quasi-prefix, that implies something breaks that standard curve, doesn't it?
It does. It totally does. The quasi-element accounts for this massive, disproportionate penalty that our brains apply specifically when we delay immediate gratification.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's the difference between waiting for something a year from now versus waiting for something right this very second.
Ah, right now has a special pull.
Exactly. And the researchers use this thing called the beta-delta model to explain it. You can visualize these as two distinct cognitive forces in your head.
Okay, two forces.
So delta is your rational, standard discounting of the future. It's the mechanism that smoothly calculates that a payout of $100 next year is, worth slightly less to you than $100 tomorrow.
Okay, so delta is basically the long-term planner. It handles abstract, logical time horizons.
Precisely. But beta represents the present bias.
The present bias?
Yeah, it is this intense, localized distortion in how we value things that are available immediately.
Wow, okay.
And the Chung meta-analysis synthesized those 86 studies to calculate the exact numerical value of this beta parameter.
Wait, they put an actual number on it?
They did. If a person were perfectly rational, and had zero present bias, their beta would just be 1.0.
Which would mean they value an immediate reward and a future reward entirely based on logical math.
Right, without any emotional impulsivity at all.
Which is, let's be honest, nobody.
Well, interestingly, when it comes to money, our beta is actually 0.938.
Really? That is surprisingly close to rational.
We are. When dealing with financial payoffs, the human brain is highly capable of patience.
That's so weird.
I know. We will wait for a larger sum of money later, rather than demanding a smaller sum today. But, and here's the catch, when the reward switches to non-monetary, like visceral consumption.
Oh, like eating food or physical pleasure.
Exactly. When it's real consumption, the beta drops drastically to 0.750.
Wow, that is a huge drop.
The present bias just becomes totally dominant.
Okay, let's unpack this because this perfectly explains why I can easily set up a 401k contribution for 30 years from now.
Right, it's just numbers.
Yeah, but if you put a warm chocolate chip cookie in front of me right now, like, all my long-term health plans completely evaporate.
They just disappear.
Exactly. Money is abstract, but the cookie is real consumption.
And that neurological mechanism is the crucial distinction here.
How so?
Well, the limbic system evolved in an environment of scarcity, where immediate consumption was a literal survival advantage.
Oh, because if you didn't eat the berries now, a bear would eat them.
Exactly. And the meta-analysis also notes that choices involving immediate physical effort, like deciding whether to do a grueling workout now versus tomorrow, that sits somewhere between abstract money and visceral consumption.
Oh, because the physical dread triggers the limbic system too.
Right. It distorts the math. We are essentially mathematically wired by this beta parameter to grab the immediate sensory reward and avoid immediate physical discomfort.
Which brings us to the core tension of this deep dive.
Yep.
If we are biologically and mathematically wired to prioritize our own immediate comfort, how does the machinery for altruism even exist?
It's the million-dollar question.
And this is where Howard Rachlin's paper comes in, because he makes this audacious claim that altruism is simply a subcategory of self-control.
He does. And he uses a framework he calls teleological behaviorism.
Teleological.
Yeah, it means goal-directed. Rachlin argues that to understand human choice, we shouldn't get bogged down in analyzing internal emotional states.
Like, don't worry about how someone feels.
Exactly. Instead, we should look at the ultimate long-term patterns of behavior a person is trying to achieve over time.
Okay, and he introduces this concept of complex ambivalence, which seems to, like, reframe the entire beta-delta conflict.
It really flips it on its head.
Right, because instead of seeing a choice as just good versus bad, he defines it as a conflict between a highly valued single immediate act and an even higher valued pattern of acts over time.
Yes, and the Primrose Path experiment is his foundational example for this. He frames it as the alcoholic's dilemma.
Okay, lay that out for us.
So if someone is choosing between having a single drink right now or refusing that single drink, the single act of drinking will always yield a higher immediate reward.
Because it satisfies the limbic system.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But if you zoom out, the long-term pattern of sobriety yields a much higher quality of life than the long-term pattern of chronic drunkenness.
Right. But the trap is that we don't live our lives in long-term patterns.
We don't.
We live our lives moment to moment, single act by single act.
Very true.
So if we are trapped in the moment, the present bias always favors the drink.
And Rachlin takes that exact mechanism and applies it to social cooperation.
Oh, this is the audience game stuff.
Yes, it's a version of the prisoner's dilemma. Imagine a group where you can either cooperate for a shared collective payout, or you can defect for a massive personal bonus at the expense of everyone else.
Right. We don't even need to do the arithmetic on the payouts to see the logical trap there.
It's pretty obvious.
The short-term selfish choice always maximizes your immediate personal gain no matter what anyone else does.
Right.
But if everyone acts selfishly based on that momentary logic, the entire group loses out on the long-term collective benefit.
And Rachlin says the architecture of that social dilemma is identical to the addict's dilemma.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, defecting in a social game is structurally the exact same thing as taking the drink. It's the triumph of the single, immediate act over the collective pattern.
Okay, but he pushes this structural comparison to its absolute extreme, doesn't he?
He really goes for it.
Because he applies it to the scenario where a woman runs into a burning building to save a stranger's child.
That is the ultimate test of his theory.
Right, because in that terrifying situation, Rachlin argues she isn't doing a cost-benefit analysis of the single act.
No, because if her brain processed it as an isolated choice, the potential cost is death.
Which is an overwhelmingly negative payout.
Exactly. Her present bias would force her to run away.
So how does he explain her running in?
Well, according to teleological behaviorism, she isn't choosing a single act. She is choosing to maintain a highly valued, lifelong pattern of identity.
An identity.
Yes. She perceives herself as a courageous, altruistic person. Breaking that established pattern, standing by while a child dies when she physically can intervene, that would destroy the overarching pattern of her identity.
Wow.
And for her, the destruction of that pattern is a worse outcome than the physical risk of the fire.
I have to push back on Rachlan here.
Go for it.
Because this is where the theory feels uncomfortably clinical to me.
It definitely rubs people the wrong way.
It reduces this incredible act of human bravery to a well-maintained habit loop.
Mhm.
It suggests heroism is structurally identical to refusing dessert.
I know, it sounds a bit cold.
Right. If Rachlan is arguing that altruism is entirely learned through maintaining behavioral patterns, he seems to be completely ignoring, like, the evolutionary hardware and the raw emotional empathy we're literally born with.
Well, your discomfort mirrors the massive backlash his paper received from the broader scientific community.
I'm not surprised.
Let's look at the evolutionary biologists first, led by critics like Krebs, Bread, and Margolis.
Okay, what did they say?
They completely reject the idea that we need a general habit-learning mechanism to explain altruism. They argue that we are running pre-installed evolutionary software.
I mean, biology provides very clear mechanics for this.
It does.
We have kin selection, where we are genetically predisposed to sacrifice for those who carry our DNA just to ensure its survival.
Right.
And we have reciprocal altruism, that deeply ingrained instinct of, I'll help you now because you might save me later.
And they also point to group selection.
Group selection.
Yeah. Across human history, groups of cooperative, altruistic individuals simply outcompeted and outsurvived groups of selfish egoists.
Oh, that makes sense.
So to an evolutionary biologist, the woman doesn't run into the building to maintain a learned personal habit.
She runs in because she is executing an ancient biological imperative.
Exactly. One designed to protect the social group, which ultimately ensures the survival of the species.
Okay, the biological argument makes total sense for the origin of the behavior, but I feel like it doesn't entirely explain the psychological experience of the person in the moment.
Which is exactly what the psychology camp argues.
Oh, really?
Yeah, researchers like Gintis, Buck, and Lewis, they attack Rachlin's theory from the angle of immediate emotion.
Okay, so how do they see it?
They argue that altruism isn't about long-term patterns at all. It's about immediate emotional payoffs.
Immediate payoffs.
Yeah. When that woman sees a child in danger, she is hit with a profound, immediate wave of empathy. And that's coupled with the anticipation of devastating guilt if she does nothing.
So she isn't suppressing her present bias for a long-term goal.
No.
The intense emotional pain of guilt actually hijacks the present bias.
Exactly.
Acting to save the child literally becomes the least painful immediate option.
It does.
She's essentially putting out a psychological fire in her own brain.
That is a very compelling way to synthesize the psychological perspective.
It makes a lot of sense.
The immediate emotional relief becomes the reward. We even see this in behavioral studies like the public goods game conducted by Fair and Gechter.
What happens in that one?
They found that people will happily spend their own money just to punish free riders who refuse to cooperate.
Oh, wow. Because it feels good in the moment to punish a cheater.
Exactly. It satisfies our anger and our sense of justice. It's a visceral reflex, not a calculated long-term habit.
So what does all this mean for us? Because Rachlan thinks we're playing a grand, rational game of chess with our habits, but the evolutionary biologists think we're running pre-installed software.
And the psychologists think we're just trying to manage our own emotional pain.
Right. It's a huge spectrum.
But we also have to mention the neuroscientists, because they add another layer that kind of brings us back toward Rachlin's core idea of self-control.
Okay, what do they bring to the table?
Researchers Gray and Braver point out that both resisting temptation and engaging in social cooperation demand heavy activation of the lateral prefrontal cortex.
The lateral prefrontal cortex.
Yes. This region of the brain is responsible for maintaining context and suppressing what they call a prepotent response.
I think we should define that. A prepotent response is like your brain's automatic, deeply ingrained biological reflex, right?
Exactly.
Like flinching from a hot stove or grabbing high-calorie food or running away from a burning building.
Spot on. The lateral prefrontal cortex has to exert massive cognitive effort to override those prepotent survival instincts.
Oh, wow.
So neurologically speaking, the same mental machinery really is actively engaged, whether you are resisting a cookie or fighting the urge to flee a fire.
So it does require overriding the immediate reflex to serve a higher context.
It really does.
There is one more critique in this stack that I find just fascinating. It comes from Barron.
Oh, the illusion of morality.
Yes. He introduces this concept, which suggests a completely different cognitive mechanism. He argues that we often justify cooperative behavior through cognitive dissonance and happy illusions.
Right, he refers to this as the voter's illusion.
Yeah.
It's this flawed cognitive leap where we assume our personal choice magically influences others who are completely disconnected from us.
The mechanics of that illusion are so wild. We basically blur the line between correlation and causation.
We really do.
We tell ourselves, if I vote or if I cooperate in this social dilemma, it means other people who think like me will also cooperate.
Right.
We trick our own brains into believing our single, isolated act will somehow cause a cascade of cooperation.
And that illusion eases the immediate sting of the personal sacrifice.
We use the illusion of causation to justify the cost of the altruistic act.
Exactly. When we step back and view all of these critiques together, we really are looking at a profound spectrum of human motivation.
I mean, it spans from pure learned behavioral habits to ancient evolutionary hardwiring to the immediate relief of empathetic pain.
And all the way to the active neurological suppression of our survival instincts and even complex cognitive illusions.
The reality is probably a synthesis of all these mechanisms working simultaneously.
Most likely.
But regardless of the origin of the machinery, whether it's evolution, emotion, or habit, how can we actually use this information to make better choices in our own lives?
Well, this is where Rachlin's framework offers some incredibly practical applications.
Oh, really?
Yes, if we want to utilize this research, his concept of soft commitment is absolutely vital.
How does soft commitment actually function in practice?
It relies on the structural momentum of a pattern. When you begin a pattern of behavior, the psychological cost of breaking it increases with every successful repetition.
So an individual who has refused 100 consecutive drinks is far less vulnerable to temptation today than someone who has refused only one.
Exactly.
The temptation of the alcohol hasn't decreased.
No, not at all.
The beta pull of immediate consumption is still there, but the subjective value of the streak, the 100 days of sobriety, has grown so large that the cost of destroying it outweighs the immediate reward of the drink.
That's it exactly. Rachlin uses the analogy of a crossword puzzle to illustrate how these patterns acquire intrinsic value.
A crossword puzzle.
Yeah. When you fill in the final letter of a crossword puzzle, you aren't receiving a prize.
Right.
The isolated act of writing a single letter holds zero external reward. The value exists entirely in the completion of the pattern.
Oh, the pattern itself is the reward.
Precisely.
That shifts the entire paradigm of how we view discipline, doesn't it?
It really does.
You stop obsessing over the deprivation of the single choice in front of you, and you just focus on the aesthetic or personal value of the whole puzzle.
And the environment in which we build these patterns is equally important. Baker and Rachlin actually conducted a study examining how people cooperate when playing games against computer algorithms.
Okay, what did they find?
They observed that people are generally cooperative when the computer utilizes a strict tit-for-tat strategy.
Meaning, if you cooperate, the system rewards you by cooperating.
Right.
And if you defect, it instantly punishes you by defecting. It acts as an uncompromising teacher.
Exactly. It creates a stable, predictable environment. But the fascinating discovery was that humans cooperate significantly more when they are placed in a Pavlovian environment.
Wait, what's a Pavlovian environment in a computer game?
A Pavlov strategy is an algorithm that actively learns and adapts based on the player's previous choices.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't just blindly mirror the last move. It attempts to maximize mutual outcomes based on the history of the game.
That dynamic really mimics true human interaction.
It does.
Because a tit-for-tat environment feels like a rigid transactional system, whereas a Pavlovian environment feels like a relationship.
Spot on.
If we believe our environment is capable of learning from us and adapting, we are far more willing to invest the initial cost of cooperation.
Right. Our willingness to suppress our present bias and act altruistically is heavily dependent on whether we feel our environment supports and learns from those patterns.
Okay, so if you are navigating your own choices today, whether you are trying to be more patient, more frugal, healthier with your diet, or even more charitable, the science suggests a very clear strategy.
It really does.
Don't engage in a localized war with your impulses over every single decision. Don't isolate the chocolate chip cookie or the $20 you're considering donating today. Contextualize the choice.
Yes. Build a streak.
Exactly. Focus on building a streak. Construct a pattern of behavior so integral to your identity that the cost of breaking it simply becomes unthinkable. Make the pattern so beautiful that you wouldn't dare break it.
By embedding our choices into a larger narrative, we neutralize the limbic system's demand for immediate consumption. We actually empower the prefrontal cortex to architect the life we want.
This has been a really remarkable exploration.
They've been fun.
Just to pull all these threads together, we started by examining the hard math of quasi-hyperbolic discounting. We saw clear evidence in that 2026 meta-analysis that our brains aggressively devalue the future when faced with visceral sensory temptation.
That dreaded present bias.
Right. Then we unpacked Howard Rashland's teleological behaviorism, entertaining this wild idea that risking your life and skipping dessert utilize the exact same behavioral muscles of pattern maintenance.
And then we waded into the backlash.
Yes. We navigated the intense scientific debate, realizing that altruism is likely this complex alloy of learned habits, evolutionary software, empathetic reflexes, and heavy neurological suppression.
The architecture of our decision-making is just a precarious, beautiful system.
It really is. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought that kind of extends beyond the source material we've covered today.
Okay, let's hear it.
We have spent this deep dive analyzing self-control and altruism as internal mechanisms, right? Patterns we build and maintain through friction and effort. But consider the trajectory of modern society.
The external environment is definitely shifting rapidly.
It is. We are systematically offloading the burden of self-control to technology.
Oh, that's true.
We utilize software to lock our browsers so we don't procrastinate. We rely on apps to manage our diets. We automate our financial savings so we never have to actively choose to put money away. We are basically engineering the friction out of our daily lives.
Wow, we are literally outsourcing the lateral prefrontal cortex to our devices.
Exactly. And if Rachlin's core premise holds true, if the neurological machinery required to resist small daily temptations is the exact same machinery required to execute acts of spontaneous, selfless altruism, what are the long-term consequences of automating our discipline?
That's a scary thought.
Right. If we allow our internal muscle of self-control to atrophy because our devices do the heavy lifting, are we inadvertently eroding our capacity to be heroic when the moment demands it? If we never practice walking away from the metaphorical cookie, will we still have the cognitive strength to run into the burning building?
That is a profound question about the future of human cooperation in an automated world.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the hidden forces behind your daily choices. And remember, the next time you are faced with a minor temptation, you are not just making a decision about a fleeting moment of consumption. You might be actively calibrating the very mental architecture required to be a hero. Until next time.